Jot down any questions. We will have a Q&A time at the end for Jamie. I'll let him get undressed here. Yeah. Thank you, Jamie.
Yeah. Thank you. Wow, that's funny. Can I give you? It was funny where I was in that little room back there, you know, the restroom, and I heard my name announced. Some things like you can't speed up, you know what I mean? It's like, wow, I bet. Who do you tell, like, your body, like, hurry up, you know? That was almost embarrassing. Thank you. We're really glad you're here. Welcome. We've had a good 2 days together, and I was thinking, wow, what do we want to talk about here tonight? And our sense is, so Donna's over here, and we have some friends with us that I want you to hear from a little bit. But I was just thinking myself, like, what do we want to do? What should we do tonight together? And so I had this thought suddenly so I think about 8 months ago, well, recently, I don't know if any of you have seen this, there's a new book on marriage out called Vertical Marriage. Isn't that the name of it? Vertical Marriage. Has anyone heard of that book? Shoot, okay. I was hoping you hadn't, because I know the author, and I want to say, hey, I mentioned your book. Nobody heard of it. But anyway, he's a great guy, him and his wife, and they were on Good Morning America, the Today Show. I don't care what show he's on. He'll call me and tell me. I don't care. And the Today Show, and Donna's like, hey, look who's on the Today Show. And I'm like, and him and his amazing wife, and they're being interviewed. And then I think they went over to another studio, and I don't even care. And they were basically on TV all day talking about vertical marriage. Well, so, you know human nature. You know, when you see someone you know succeed, you know how you are, like, yay for them. You're not. You're like, I can write a better book on marriage than him. And the way I know I can, is because when they were writing that book, before they wrote that book, we were together with them and some other people. The couple is David Ann Wilson. Anyway, so we were with them, and they're from Detroit, and we were with them, and we were doing some stuff together about transformation and creativity, which is something I want to talk about tonight. Is creativity. That's really kind of my main theme tonight is how creative you actually are and don't believe it. I'm telling you, if Dave can write a book on marriage, oh my gosh. Anyway, so we were with them, and actually Donna was leading this kind of a greenhouse, we call it, where you get together and you spend time getting rid of the fear that prevents creativity. If I did a thing tonight, maybe we'll try it, I don't know. I've done it in groups this big, but we could spend not very long and basically work to eliminate fear in your life. Yeah. Does that scare you? See what I mean? See, already you're like, what? What now? What? I'm not sure I like this. Anyway, and once the fear starts to leave, it's the vacuum of the space that fear takes up and dominates your life. As the fear starts to go, creativity backfills it. Yeah. Do you know why that is? Because you're creators. That's what you are. Like, what else are you? But that's not what you think about yourself. I'm telling you, every age in this room is a creator, and you have so much within you that wants to come out and be expressed in all the various forms of how that comes out. But what stops it is fear. That's what stops it. It's that simple. So anyway, Dave, who was at our training, by the way, which wasn't mentioned on today. I know, I watched him everywhere. He never mentioned us. It's okay, I'm not in it for the glory. And that's what Fawn said. I don't want glory, I want credit and money from all the money he's making on his book. So anyway, Dave and Ann were with us and at this thing, and Dave, I'm sure he was the chaplain for the Detroit Lions. I rest my case on his effectiveness as a person if you've seen the Detroit Lions play, but I don't think, yeah, exactly. So he and his wife were there, and some other people were there. And so Donna did 2 days, I think, on this, how to get rid of fear and become creative. And it was a beautiful time. So anyway, so then after that time, this is all, the book is emerging in Dave and Ann's mind while we're doing all this. Because your book, or whatever it is you're ready to do, is in you. It's inside of you. And a lot of the idea of giving birth is the idea of creating something new. The whole process is related to birth, And so, anyway, so while he and I are together in particular, we're working through his fear. If he was standing right here, he would deny all of this, but it's true. And we're working through his fear. And while we're talking, it's very emotional to him because fear becomes a part of your identity, right? It's so much a part of your identity, you're afraid to not be afraid. You're afraid to have courage. And so, especially younger people, when you have these ideas, me and Donna are working on ideas that we thought about when we were 19. And they've always been right. And when you try them and they don't work, you just do them again and try them again in a different way. Anyway, so Dave's book idea, Dave and Ann's book, was in them already. And they were actually talking about it, kind of. And so he and I are together, and another guy from Detroit, and we're working together on just Dave's fear, what's stopping his creativity from just exploding. Here's another little thought. So what Dave and Ann were able to do, I say this to people all the time, it's amazing what you've accomplished at 20% of who you actually are. What if we got to 50% of who you really are? What would happen? It would astound you. But actually it wouldn't, because you would go, I knew it. You do know it. You know it right now. But I'm afraid of what it would take. Therefore, I'm not going to do it. What you want is the pain of not doing it to be greater than your fear of doing it. The pain of not doing it should keep you, I got to do this. We have to do this. Like that. That's what you want. So Dave and I are doing this, and he's saying to me, you know what I really want to do? What? In my true self, in my true identity. And he lays out this, he wants to be the lead person of this big national organization that has to do with marriage. Like everything that's coming out of him, of who he is about relationship between a husband and wife or whatever. That's what's just pouring out of him naturally, organically. He doesn't have to think about it. When he relaxes, this comes out of him. And so he's like, but why can't you do that? Why can't you be the head of that, whatever that organization is? He goes, well, it's this fear. And so we work through the fear. Being the head of the organization is not the challenge. The challenge is getting rid of the fear that will prevent him from doing that. Does everyone understand that? The fear is what kills you. So we're working through that. And I said, okay, because Dave's from a faith background, and so I say to him, okay, say out loud, say to God or the universe out loud what you see yourself not doing, listen to this, what you see yourself being. That's different than doing. Being. What do you see yourself being? And he says, I see myself being, he says it again, the head, the lead of this big national, huge thing about relationships. And I'm like, okay, now, say out loud the reason why you're not going to do that. It's called truth-telling. Say the fear. Say it out loud. He says, because I'm not good enough. Do you know how many people we talk to throughout the week? Business, it doesn't matter who we're with. This is sort of the baseline cry of lament of every person, whether they're millionaires or it doesn't matter, is this. This is their great admission to their deepest fear. Everything that I want to be is all on me. It's all on me to be responsible to make that happen. No one's going to help me. No God, no one's going to help me. I have to do it by myself, and I'm not good enough to do it. Do you know how many human beings believe that? Most of us. We dream and then I have to do that, and I'm not good enough. There it goes. So that's what he says. I would love to be the head of this organization. It has millions of clients, and he says, but I'm not good enough to do it. That's his fear. He says it out loud, and we do this fear exchange, we call it. So I said to him, okay, give the fear to God. Just give it to God, however you see that. Say what it is. We were doing this together today. And give it to God, or whatever you believe about that. Hand it, open up your hand, and let the fear go, and tell me what it looks like. And he gets very emotional. And he told me before we started, he goes, I just want you to know, Jamie, I'm not emotional about stuff. So I said, okay, let's start. And then I'm trying to do this part, but he's crying so much, the unemotional man's man, because he's never really told the truth. Do you know how afraid we are to tell the truth about who we really are? We're so afraid of it because it's so bad. Such a loser or something. And so he gives it to God. And I said, okay, now ask God, or love, or the universe, whatever, because when you empty a space here that's taken up space in you, fear takes up a tremendous amount of energy and space. Because when you're afraid, you have to self-protect and self-promote all the time. And it's exhausting, right? You have to defend yourself against every criticism, or you have to prove everyone's wrong, or make sure everyone that's against you is wrong, all that. It's exhausting. It's much easier just to be who you are, way easier. So all this fear creates, you can feel it in your stomach, in your chest, in your headaches. We're giving it away. We're releasing it, telling the truth about it. We're giving it away. And now this space needs to be filled with something else. And what it needs to be filled with is what's true about you. But it's not just you telling yourself that, because you've already tried that. I think I'm a great writer, but I'm never going to do it because I'm afraid, because, the rejection. Okay, so we're going to empty that out. Jesus says it like this when he's talking about this very issue. He says, when you sweep the house clean of the demons inside of you, the demons are fear, guilt, and shame. When you finally take 60 seconds and let those demons just go over here for 60 seconds, he says, if you don't fill that space with something else, these will be right back worse. Right? So I can come into an environment, whatever it is, and I can say, okay, I'm just going to get rid of my fear. I'm going to get rid of my fear. And I set it right here. Okay, there it is. That feels pretty good. And I walk outside, and here it comes. Monday morning, back into the vacuum, because nothing took the place of the fear. And so then I'll pick the fear right back up, because I don't know how to exist without the fear. I've never lived in my true self. So set the fear down, and then, okay, God or love or truth, what do you give me in exchange for my fear? And just listen. We do this all over the world. It doesn't matter what background person we're talking to. Just listen. Shh, listen. Here goes the fear. What am I? Who am I? And listen and say what comes in your mind. Don't think about it. Just say it. Do you know why? Because you've known your whole life the answer to that question. Because it's never been hidden from you. But you're afraid of it. And you bury it. No one can take it away from you. You give it away. So he does that, crying. And the voice, the idea that comes to him is, you are a healer of relationship. And he's weeping. And I said, does that make sense to you? It doesn't matter I'm not telling him what it is. How do I know what it is? I'm just with him to hear. I'm just with him to help. I'm going to hold off the fear for 60 seconds so for once you can hear the truth about who you really are. And he hears it. I'm a healer of relationship. Yeah. Does that make sense to you? He goes, it's been in me my whole life. Right. Yes. What are you going to do with that? And he goes, I don't know. I said, okay, now ask, what do I do with this identity? So he goes, what do I do with this identity? And his phone rings in his pocket. Like, oh, that's cool. Somebody has a phone, and I said, go ahead, answer it. He opens up his phone, and it's the executive director of the national organization that he's talking about, calling him. He's like, we're like, answer it. You asked a question to what's true. You asked a question to God. Are you not going to listen to the answer? Oh, how many times do we do this? Oh, what should I do? You have an idea? That's stupid. And then off you go into fear again, right? Which is very common for humans to do that. Anyway, so he answers his phone. It's the executive director of this organization he keeps talking about, calling him right then to say that he is planning on retiring and wants to know if Dave will be the new leader. Yeah. And Dave's like, what do I say? Because you know what he's afraid of now? Being the executive director of this national organization. It was okay when it was a pipe dream, but now it's here. God's like, here it is. And Dave's like, I'm not sure I want that. Oh, God is like, here we go. Oh, my God, here we go. Is there, that's why I love reading the narrative in the Bible. Actually, we because we work in Islam and all this, so we read a lot of the traditions of religions and stuff from the story. But Donna's Jewish, and I'm from a Christian background, so that's our tradition. Hers is the Old Testament. Mine's sort of the Old Testament. I'm kind of more in the New than her. But when you're reading those stories, what I love about those stories is just how real they are, how true they are. If you don't try and turn them into some kind of creed or doctrine, if you just read them for what they are, and you look at the characters in Scripture, we look at it like they're case studies. Like they're case studies of human history. Like if you're thinking, man, here I'm in this situation. Has anyone ever been in this same situation as me? And so you can take the history, the Bible, or something like that, and just, oh yeah, right here. So I say to Dave, is there anywhere in here where a group of people have asked for something, it's given to them, and they turn away and won't take it? Anyone in the Bible? And Dave's like, that's kind of like the whole Bible. And it is. I know, it is. It's a whole thing. It's like the weird thing is when they take it. That's the odd person. So, you send the spies into the land that they've been in bondage for 400 years. They're delivered out of it through the most bizarre circumstances. And if you're the leader like Moses, it's not necessarily hard to kind of have an inspirational plan. It's hard to make it sound good to the people that are following you. That's the challenge. And so Moses is like, well, I have an idea. However, he got the idea that God told him. We don't know what that means exactly. God said, that's just how it's recorded, but we don't know how did he hear it, right? It doesn't say God verbally. It just says, and God said, or they knew, or something obscure like that. That's so you can't put that in a formula. And so here's Moses, the story. You've seen Charlton Heston do this, and in Exodus, Christian Bale do this. And Christian Bale is actually probably better than Charlton Heston, a little more less Hollywood. But so Christian Bale is playing Moses, and he's led his people, the story, to the Red Sea, and Pharaoh and the armies are coming, and he's laying down by the water, and he's like, we have nowhere to go. Like, this is over. It was great for a while, sort of, not super great, but it's been great for a while, and now we're trapped and abandoned. or stuck and alone, which is how most of us feel most of the time. We're stuck and alone. Like, I'm stuck and alone. Well, why don't you do something new? Because I'm always stuck and alone. That's why. So Moses is there, and somehow he has this idea that the sea is going to part, or maybe it just starts parting. It's cool in the movie, Christian Bale takes the sword that he has from Pharaoh that he depends on, because he's quite a soldier, and he gets frustrated, and he just throws it into the Red Sea, and when it hits the water, the sea starts to part. It's like Moses is saying, I've always relied on my own ability, with my own power, and it's not going to work anymore, and he just throws it away. He's truth-telling. I can't rely on this in this situation, and he throws it away. He's not going to die holding it in his hand. He throws it away, and he says, he's like, I give this up. And he creates an exchange. This thing that he's been holding on to that has kind of got him to here, but it can't get him to there, he's got to let it go in exchange for something else. In that scenario, his ability for a higher level ability that can move water. And so he throws his false identity into the water. And then in his true identity, he accesses another level of being himself, because God moves at another level that God cannot move with people who look at him and go, we're not going. We don't care what you do. We're too afraid. We're not going. And so in the scene, the water just starts to drop like this, and he's looking at the water, and he stands up, and he's like, and he kind of gets it. He's telling the people, get up, we're going to walk through. This is the plan to his people. We're going to walk through that water as soon as it moves. Get ready. Hasn't moved yet. But when it moves, and they're all like, what now? What are you saying? This is the normal God plan. What are we going to do? Get 2 million people to stand up? That would have exhausted me right there. Just like, we were busy having a conversation. We can't even get 50 people to move, He's got all these people. And so get them all up, and then we're going to walk into the water. Don't worry, it'll move. Would you go? I would be like, let's see, do I want to drown or be taken back into captivity? I know how to survive. I know how to survive in bondage. I've done it my whole life. But if I go out there, I don't know what's going to happen to me. I'd rather go back into bondage. That's how most of us think. It's too risky. Great idea. It's not even a great idea. It's a dumb idea. I'm going back this way. And he has a great line in that movie. He says, you've honored me with your trust. Now let me honor you with my hope. That's what he says to the people. And he just runs into the water. He's giving them permission to believe by doing it himself. It takes one person to do it. And then 6 will go, oh, let's just drown. Let's go. And then 20, and then they all start to go like that. So my friend, he's looking at his phone. It's like, it's them. We're like, we see, yes. What do I do? Step 1, answer the phone. It's not complicated. It's getting less complicated than before. Now your phone is ringing. You don't have to pray fast. Here's what you do. Do this. And go, hello. Boom! That's all you have to do. I know, but should I pray? Oh my God. It's like, oh. And hello? Like me and the other guy already know. We know before the guy says it what the guy's going to say. We're like, is there anywhere in the Bible where people cry out in desperation for something to happen that's impossible and it happens? It's the whole Bible again. And so we want you to be the executive director of this. And we're like, yeah, say yes. Next step, don't pray. Watch our mouths. Yes. Do you know what our lead answer in most challenging situations is? No. That's what it is. Any risky, threatening, challenging, idea-changing situation? Do you want to go? No. Guess how far forward you can move when no is what comes out of your mouth? You don't move. So we learned, like, if you start with a no, that's pretty much the end of that. If you start with a yes, you can at least take 2 steps before you shift to no. But if you start with a no, so, yes, I want to do that. And so it launches into this thing, which results in him and his wife writing this book called Vertical Marriage. So he's in the process of writing the books before it came out, just recently came out. So I'm in Detroit. He's invited me to come to this thing that he's doing, and there's 1,000 people in the room. I don't know why. He's not that good of a speaker, but it's a big room. And there's 1,000 people there to see him and his wife. And they're a really good-looking couple. I mean, they're fit. They're about my age. I'm 59. They might be a little bit older, but I'm sure they're older than me. But they're fit, and they're attractive, and they're charismatic, and they're up there, Dave and Ann. They're just to have the right names, Dave and Ann. You know, that's right, Dave and Ann. And their marriage is vertical. And so he's going to introduce me to talk on not marriage, but on something else, not as important as marriage. And so he's getting ready to introduce me, and I'm sitting down there, and they're both so energetic, and so I'm down there looking like, what is a vertical marriage? Like, what does that mean? Like, it's bothering me. You know, we're working on a book called Vertical Marriage. Like, what's my marriage? Horizontal? I don't know. What is my marriage? Parallel? What is it? Is it a shape at all? Is it a shape? Is it a line? I don't know. I never even thought about this. That's why you haven't written a book about it so far. Like, you can't even think of a title. Horizontal marriage. I think it's just the wrong message if I say horizontal marriage. Like, his is vertical. Mine was just horizontal. I don't know. Seems like a lower form of marriage. I don't know. Anyway, so he's up there, and they're like, you know, people are like, what about your book? Vertical marriage. And so he goes, I don't want to talk about all that. My friend Jamie's here. I'm like, friend? Yeah. Like, you wouldn't have written Vertical Marriage. Yeah, anyway, it doesn't matter. And so he calls me up, and, like, this is just my own fear. So I go up there. I'm standing up there, and he's up there. He and Ann are moving across the stage. They're real peppy. They never just walk like normal people. They're peppy. It's because they're vertical. Their marriage is vertical. That's why they walk like this. This is my marriage. It's horizontal. I don't know what it is. Donna's here. You can ask her how it's going. Anyway, and so they get on that side of the stage, and I'm coming on. And for some reason, I feel like self-protecting about my marriage. So I say, I'm like, hey, that's great about your book about vertical, that you're working on vertical marriage. I don't even know what vertical marriage is. That's what I say, and he looks at me like, you're kind of going off script here on me. And I'm like, I know, like, I'm mad at you right now. So I'm jealous of you and your vertical marriage. And so he says, like, he tries to have mercy on me. He goes, yeah, Jamie and his wife they have a good marriage. Not a great marriage, they have a good. See, that's how sensitive I am right now. Why'd you say good? Why isn't it great? Why isn't it vertical? Why didn't you say, here's an example of a vertical marriage, Jamie and Donna. Maybe more vertical than our marriage. Maybe, I don't know. He could have said that. He didn't. He said they have a good marriage. So I'm like, I said, well, I'm not even there to talk on marriage. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not myself. I'm in the false identity. I'm like, well, our marriage is based on 3 principles. I'm like, what? Do you ever do that? You say something, you're like, who is talking? Who's talking right now? I know you've done it in your relationship. Any relationship you're in, you say something, you're like, who said that? Oh my God. Like that. And so I say, yeah. It's based, now Dave knows I don't know what I'm talking about. And he could, like a real friend that helped him come up with the idea of vertical marriage, us, he could just leave it alone and realize, man, you're out of your depth right now, Jamie. He goes, oh, really? What are the 3 principles? I'm like, dang it, all right. Whew. And I go, the 3 C's? And I'm thinking, these people have no idea. They've met Donna, but they don't know. I've never talked about marriage. They don't know if I have 3 C's or not. They don't know. 3 C's? And I'm like, hey, Dave, get off. Leave. He goes, really? What are the C's? And I go, like, how fast can you think of 3 C's about marriage? I said, number 1, communication. And he goes, really? Have you communicated with Donna about what you're getting ready to say about your marriage right now? I'm like, gosh, I just disliked you before, but now... He goes, really? Have you and Donna communicated about this? And I go, no, I mean, yes, in a way. And he goes, okay. And I can just see if Donna was with me going, communication? Like, that has never been a C in our marriage. Never, ever been a C in our marriage. That? Like, I don't even know what you're saying because we haven't even communicated about the communication C in our marriage yet. And so Dave goes, yeah, and what's another C? And now I'm like, I'm not kidding. I said, consumerism. Like, consumerism? He goes, really, consumerism? And the more I think about it, I'm like, yeah, actually, yes, that is one that really holds our marriage together is consumerism. Yes. So I'm thinking... And then I'm like, please don't ask me for another C. But he finally just said, you know what? He didn't come here to talk about marriage. He came here to talk about identity. Let's let Jamie talk. And he walks off the stage. But I had a 3rd C. I'm not kidding. It was communism. That's what I was going to say. And then I was going to try and talk about we're equal. We get the same pay. I don't know what I was talking about. Anyway, so the whole time he knows that I'm totally don't know what I'm talking about, and I'm just threatened by the idea that he's going to write a book. And then the book comes out, Vertical Marriage. Wow, it's amazing, it's Vertical Marriage. And here's the cool thing about Dave, actually, Dave and Ann, who are hugely influential in our lives as well. Our relationships are reciprocal. That's the beauty of relationships. That's why you don't want to be alone. That's why it's never good to be alone. Other relationships that are built on respect and reciprocity are super valuable. And so Dave and Ann are the ones that actually got me and Donna launched in what we actually do. So we helped them, and then they turned around and helped us do what we do. And because we're very different identities, and this is my whole point of that whole thing, is if you're going to compare yourself to someone else, you have already lost. You're already done. Do you know why? Because you can't be another person. It's impossible. So the minute that you say, wow, I wish I had a vertical marriage like them, that's okay. But to say, I wish I was them, you're done. It's very different to say, wow, I aspire to their ability to go after what they dream about or believe in. But to be like them, you have already lost, because to be like them, you have to give away your true identity. And guess what most of us are doing? We're doing. And guess what most of our young people are doing? That. Right? So now, the funny thing is, he turned down the directorship of that international thing. He turned it down because it was like he realized that that was sort of a symbol to him, but what God had in mind was beyond that. See, it's like we have these things, we have these sort of symbolic, sort of dream level things, but the scripture says that God wants to do in you, because you're his masterpiece, you're his workmanship, he wants to do in you more than you can ask or imagine. And that's not pie in the sky, that's just because you dream too low. If God whoever moved according to what you dream, it's too low. That's why. So the idea is like, try and imagine it, but here's the beauty. It's more than that. More than that because it's on more levels than you know. More levels than you know. So then he's on, now they're on the Today Show, and they've just skyrocketed into this really cool position. They're actually very, very humble people. I love being with them. Their son actually played for the Detroit Lions. He's involved in what we're doing. So it's really this beautiful whole story. So when you pour yourself into another person, it always returns to you. So if you're in solitude and isolation, you don't have that beautiful thing happening like that. So tonight, while we're here together, I'm giving you permission to dream, to hope. Let's call it hope, because dream sounds like that ain't going to come true. Hope. And so the word faith, the actual word faith, is a verb, and faith is an action, and faith simply defined as faith is the substance, like this, the actual substance of things that you hope for. That's it. That's it. So one day I was in another city and doing a thing for young people on identity and listening, these beautiful skills that take to foster creativity. And a lady comes up to me and she says, my daughter, my 15-year-old daughter, was sold into human trafficking. This is a normal family, I guess, and her daughter went to a concert with some friends. In the crowd, she gets abducted and by these guys, and they assault her, and they video the assault, and then they let her go. But they have her ID with them. They take her ID, and then they contact her and they show her pictures of what they've photographed of her, and they say, this is going online unless you meet us again. She's 15. She's terrified. She doesn't know what to do with that. And she doesn't want it to be known. Like any victim, they think it's their fault. This is the big lie of that. And so she goes and meets with them for a year. And every time, you can imagine, they videotape and photograph and all this stuff. And so eventually, for other reasons, the FBI, one of our sons is an FBI agent, the FBI gets into the ring, they raid it, and they contact her mom and say, these are pictures, we have lots of girls that have happened this too, we've got the guys, your daughter was involved, I don't know if she told you, and so it's exposed, the girl doesn't want to testify, whatever, but the FBI's like, it's okay, we got them, and she's now released. But the trauma to her is so great, right? So her mom says to me, she feels very abandoned by everything good in the world, and she's, cynical and all that. And will you talk to her? And I'm like, why? Like, this is not magic. Like, it's not celebrity Christianity. It's like, what do you think I would say to her? And she said, I just think she'll come talk to you. Would you be willing? And I said, absolutely, I'm absolutely willing. But I am not like a magician. Like, this is wrong. But I'm happy to meet with her as a human being. And she says, okay. And I said, if she'll meet with me, I'll meet with her. I want you there when I'm with her. And so they introduced us. So, I'm from law enforcement, and we've worked in a lot of fascinating, interesting stuff. So she comes into this coffee shop to where I meet her, and her mom sits over here, and she comes and sits with me, and we're talking, and I'm stunned at how articulate and smart she is. I don't know what I was expecting. Sometimes victimhood just robs your whole identity, but she has quite a strong identity. She's just... I don't know what and so I'm talking to her, and she's really smart, and I said, we're just talking, and I don't want to know anything about what happened to her. I'm not interested in any of that part. I don't want to go through that with her. And we're just talking, and she's 18 now, and I said to her, she said, I think, she said, the thing I'm struggling with is I don't have I don't believe in love anymore. And I said, no, she said, I don't believe in God anymore. That's what she said. I don't believe in God anymore. And I'm like, hey, I get that. Listen, I get that. And she said, and I don't believe in anything anymore. Which is, I said, well, welcome to most of the human race, because that's where we all are right now. We don't believe in anything anymore except our own little fake, little propped up identities that we defend with. We don't even believe in them. We just defend them because we don't have any other identity to defend. So we defend groups and team names and political groups and all this nonsense. And she said, so I don't believe in God, and I don't really believe in love anymore. And I said, I understand that. I said, what do you think believing is? Like, you don't believe in anything? And she said, well, she goes, no, I guess I believe. I said, do you mean faith? You don't have faith in anything? And she said, yeah, that's it. And I said, do you know what faith is? What's faith? And she said, she doesn't know what it is. It's something religious. I said, well, let me ask you this. Do you hope for anything? And she said, I don't know. And I said, well, when you go to university or you're going to university, what do you want to do? And she said, I want to be a federal prosecutor. I'm like, yeah, I get that. I feel sorry for the people that oppose you. But I said, okay. I said, so when you get to that position of federal prosecutor, which I'm sure nothing will stop you from doing, what do you hope to do? And she said, I hope to help people that are victims like me. And I said, that's called faith. Faith is not religious. Faith is not magic. Faith is the substance of the things that you hope for. I said, you have more faith than most of the Christian people I know right now, because a lot of us would have given up already at what you've been through at 15. I said, you have incredible faith. Just don't let anyone define it for you. Faith is the substance of things you hope for. It's the evidence, to my prosecutor friend, the evidence of things that you can't see yet. You can't see being a federal prosecutor yet, but you can, can't you? She said, yeah. I said, I honor your faith. That's what I said to her. And then she said, but love, she said, I don't believe in God. I said, you know what God is? Do you know what God is in the scriptures? What is God? God is love, right? God is love. I said, do you love anything? Do you love anything? Because God is love. And she said, I do love justice. And I said, then you have faith in love, don't you? And she said, I do. Yes, I have faith in love. Yes. And I said, okay. So I've worked with federal prosecutors before, women federal prosecutors, but all prosecutors. And I said, you have great faith, and you have faith in love. I said, so here's the only danger that lies ahead of you. Bitterness. Unforgiveness. So let me just explain that. So I said, if you stand up in that courtroom to lead a prosecutorial case and you do it in anger, everyone in that courtroom will fight against you. Everyone. Because that anger is like a sword that you will be waving and cutting down everyone that stands in front of you, even your own people. Because anger cannot be controlled, not that kind. Rage against an injustice, oh, beautiful. But not unforgiveness, mad, never in control. You know, like when you're training to fight, if you have a really good trainer and you're a good fighter, you learn how to fight in your identity, it's called. And so if a person fights in their identity, when they fight another really good fighter who fights in their identity, the whole win depends on which one will leave their identity first in the fight. Here's why a fighter will leave their identity. Once they leave their identity, they stop thinking, and the other fighter who remains thinking will beat them. The fighter that leaves their identity will leave for only one of two reasons. Either they become afraid or they get mad. And so another good fighter who knows this person's equal or even better will try to intimidate or enrage them. Because once the anger kicks in, no more thinking on the part of this fighter, and you can just counterpunch him to death. So the enemy that's against you wants you to be either afraid or out of control mad. He'll take either one. Unforgiveness leads to rage and bitterness. And you cannot win in that position. You will lose. And so I said to her, I've watched prosecutors who are mad at the world. And they're good, but nobody wants to work with them. But I've been with federal prosecutors, men and women both, who are doing what they do out of joy at how much they can take out injustice. And not only are they really, really good and smart, but they do it in their own identity, and everyone wants to work with them. So your decision is which kind of prosecutor do you want to be? Do you understand that? So tonight, we have two enemies in this room to our creativity. One is fear, and the other is, it's really interesting, unforgiveness. Unforgiveness. Unforgiveness is simply this. Forgiveness is this. Forgiveness is not an emotion. Forgiveness is not telling someone something's okay, ever, because there's things that are not okay. Forgiveness is not requiring payment back for something done to you or stolen from you. What happened to that girl, what happens to a lot of us in our life, is something is stolen from us. Our identity, our hope, our sense of security is stolen from us somehow by a parent, by a teacher, by our own wrong understanding of what happened to us. And that person who stole it from us, let me say this really strongly, can never give it back to you. You can kill them. You can torture them. They cannot give back to you what they took from you. Right? So if you're going to not let that person, forgiveness, the definition of forgiveness is to cancel a debt. That's all it means. To cut off a debt owed to you. It is owed to you, and it's not okay. But as long as I'm tethered to or locked onto that person, they own the rest of my life. Because I can't close my eyes without seeing them. I said this today when I was a rookie police officer and we would get into some kind of altercation or something with somebody. My training officer at the end of the shift would look at me and go, "Remember that person? Yeah. Do not take them home with you." That's what he would say to me. Do not take them home with you. Because if you take that person home with you, they will sit on the couch with you all night. And they will get in bed between you and Donna. And they will separate you from everyone you know because they'll always be right next to you, in between you and them. And you will have no relationship if you take that person home with you except with that person who you hate. And one day, you're going to try and get rid of this person because the person is right here. And they're right here. And the only way to get rid of this is either drug it or shoot it. Do not take anybody home with you tonight. That's what he used to say to me. This is the most brilliant advice I've ever heard. Right? We have taken things home with us that control the way we think. We're mad. They hurt us. And we can close our eyes, we can play music, we can drink, but they keep talking. Here's how you get rid of them. Cut them off. Cut the tether, cut the tie. Forgiveness, let them go. Let them go, because letting them go, forget them. It sets you free. And when you're free, guess what happens to you? You begin to create again. Fear, killer to creativity. Anger, unforgiveness, killer to creativity. That's why out there in the world, we keep trying to solve problems the same way over and over and over again, spending millions and millions of dollars, and everyone is still mad at everybody else, and none of it's working. Right? Okay, so tonight, we can switch that. This is how long it takes. That, like that. So in storytelling, I'm giving you permission to believe the impossible, the unbelievable, right? Okay, so here's another example. So I want to give two more, and then I want to ask a couple people to say something. Which one did I want to talk about here? Yeah, so let me talk about, so we were over in the Middle East, and so when you get into scenarios, you can't really prepare for everything. Obviously, you train in certain ways, and then you get there, and none of your training works or applies. I can remember when I was a police officer, and we got to this call, and we were out of the academy. We made it through the academy. Me and another guy that actually we went to college together went to the academy. We're out of the academy. He's on a different squad, but we end up at the same call. I get there first, and it's an unknown situation, the famous unknown situation at this apartment complex. Go in there, and I'm standing in the stairwell of the apartment, and it's this apartment down here, and the door's open, and someone's just throwing trash out the door, and I'm like, So I'm just waiting, and then I go down the stairs, and I look around, and there's a girl there. I don't know how old she is, 25, something like that. And she's throwing trash out the door, and she's in a nightgown. I'm like, And then she goes to the sink, and I walk in behind her. Are you okay? Hey, are you okay? You okay? What's going on? What are you doing? And she doesn't even look at me. She goes to the sink, and she washes a bunch of silverware, and I'm just like, I'm just trying to figure out what is happening here. And I don't know if she's I don't know who she is. She won't talk to me. She washes all the dishes and throws them all in the trash and then dumps it outside. I'm like, wow. And so then my partner comes. I'm in the kitchen. He comes in following the girl going, ma'am, are you okay? And he looks at me. He's like, what? And I'm like, I don't know. And then she sets the trash can down, and she looks at him, my partner, and she says his whole name, like that his mom gave him at birth. She goes, and she says his whole name. And just like in the movies, he's totally unfazed by this. He's like his face just goes white. And I'm looking at him, like, oh my gosh, she knows his name. And she starts telling him his history. Yeah, that's what he said. He didn't say that. He was like, and she's like, you were born in Roanoke, Virginia, and she's saying it all. And I'm standing behind her going, she's right. Like, I don't know, I felt like I was in the show or something, like, she's right, exactly right. And she goes, you worked for the Juvenile Division of Roanoke PD before you came here? And I'm like, whoa, and he is freaked out. And because I'm a good partner, I just let her do it, because that's what we have each other's back. And then she walks up to him. No, she walks past him, and she's going to go into the bathroom. It's like, we can't let her in the bathroom. We still have no idea who called the police. And he says, ma'am, you can't go in the bathroom just yet. But he's not him. I said that because he's just standing there like this watching her. He's complete, because in the police academy, they didn't ever have a scenario where you walk in and a woman's throwing trash and washing it and throwing it out and then knows everything about your past. That was never one of the role plays. So we're like, where was this in the training? Like, where was that? What was this class? We think we've seen it in a movie, but they ain't teaching it in the academy. So then you start trying to think of things you saw done in movies. But so she's going into and he says, I say to the woman, ma'am, you can't go. And she just turns around. She grabs my collar like this. And she just slams me up against the wall. And she's just holding me in the wall like this. And I'm like, another thing they teach, how to do a chop that'll make everyone release you. I'm like, it didn't work. It doesn't work at all. And then just touch this pressure point. And I'm like beating the pressure point. She doesn't have a pressure point in her body, it seems like. But she's holding me by my, like this. And my buddy, Tim, he's just staring at her. He's like, she knows my past. I'm like, like, Tim, I can't, the pressure point's not working. I'm not laughing about it, but it's funny now that we all lived through it. And I'm going, do something. And he's like, she knows I worked for the juvenile defense. I'm like, we don't care where you used to work. Nobody cares where you used to work. Help me. Like, that's all I care about. All my friends, they abandon you. I'm sure Tim had a vertical marriage. I don't know. He was... Anyway, I'll just stop there. We got out of that situation. I'll tell you later who she was. It was fascinating. Anyway, Tim came too, and we worked that out, that situation. Anyway, you get in the Middle East, and so you know, because of all this, we've had all this previous experience, that when we get there, that whatever we train for isn't going to be what happened. That's why you train, to know what's not going to happen. That's what training is all about, you know? Like, let's train really hard for this, so it'll never happen to us ever. And when we get there, it'll be the opposite of all that we just trained for. So we know that. We get there to the Middle East. And so we're working there. We were in this particular country. And so because young people are the most important thing in a country, is the next generation. So that's where we went to work. We always work with young people because, for lots of reasons. So we target the young people. We look for them, university students, whatever, it doesn't matter. So we meet one of the guys that works with me. He says, hey, and we're looking for influencers among the young people. It's a whole other topic, what an influencer is. But an influencer doesn't mean they're rich and famous. That is not what that means. It means they have the capacity to influence people around them in their true identity, but even in the false, they're still doing it. So a gang leader is an influencer. They're already an influencer. And you want to turn that influencing capability into what's true instead of into what's false, right? So anyway, we're looking for those types of people, because we're working against some extremists. And so one of our guys on our team says, hey, I met this guy. He's 19. I think he's an influencer. So I said, let's bring him, let's meet. So he comes. He's a young Arab guy. We meet together, and he's really a nice guy. And we're talking. But he's quite bitter. He's quite enraged. So we're like, so that's going to hurt him. And so I say to him, what do you dream about the future? What do you think about the future? And he says the name of his group, and he goes, we don't dream. We don't dream. Our dream, we give up. Our parents taught us we don't dream. Because dreams never happen. Wow. That kind of person will strap a bomb around themselves and walk into a marketplace. We have to stop this. How do you stop this? How do you stop this? By taking away fear. Because a person who has no hope is in deep, deep horror. Because every part of who he is as a human is screaming to have hope and dream. It's called The Biology of Transcendence. It's a great book. Anyway, and so what we want to do is reach in and help them get rid of that fear. So we have to teach them to have hope. Just like I would have to teach you guys how to have hope again. And so I'm talking to him. I'm like, well, think about the future. And he's like, I don't have a future. I'm not allowed to leave this place. I'll never get a visa anywhere. I don't have any kind of education. I'm not going anywhere. And I said, but if you could dream, if you could imagine something, if you could have hope for something that you can't see yet, but you can just visualize, what would it be? And it took weeks of just continually asking him to dream. And finally he would start to do it. And he would start to talk about dreaming because, see, I can't dream for him, and I can't pump any kind of vision into him. He has it inside of him. We're trying to unlock it and release who he really is. That's what we're trying to do. This is the best foreign policy strategy, counterterrorism strategy I know of is this. And guess how expensive it is? It's free. We're spending billions of dollars on stuff that just makes more fear. And it's built and financed from fear to produce fear. That's what we're involved in. And we're all sitting here going, doesn't seem like it to be anything else. Wow. We don't dream anymore either. Like, that's all we're coming up with? Anyway, so we're working with him. And it's funny because if you're going to tell a State Department official, now, Jamie, what's your strategy? Well, first we're going to love him. And they're like, oh, my gosh. What's that going to cost us? I'm like, you pay for love? I don't even want to hear about what your life is like. But it sounds so ridiculous, doesn't it? We don't believe in that. We don't believe in that. Love. What does that do? Perfect love casts out fear. That's what it does. Does anyone believe that anymore? Because we think force, power takes away fear. Oh my gosh, it only creates it. Anyway, doing this with this guy, this young guy. And so we're working through this. And so he's very Muslim. And so I'm talking to him in a Muslim context so that he understands what I mean when I say certain words. And we're working through it, and we start to become good friends. And I tell him every time we're together, hey, when we're done talking about whatever we talk about, I want you to go home and tell your father exactly what I said to you. Do you know why I do that? So that the father won't think I'm stealing his kid. Right? You go home and tell your father what we're talking about, and make sure that whatever happens here, you honor him. And what happened was, he was very distant from his father. He and his father started to become quite close. And his Islamic dad was like, who are you talking to? Like, you're coming home and honoring me in a way you never did before. Who are you talking to? And he's like, this American guy. I'm like, really? An American knows how to do this? Yeah. So everything starts to shift, right? We thought they were the enemy. We thought you were the enemy. Wow. We thought he was the enemy. Like, who's the actual enemy in here? The enemy's actually not here. That's not the enemy. That's not the enemy. Who's the enemy? The enemy's over here and here and here. Like that. So the kid, his name is, I won't say his name because we're videoing this. So anyway, so he starts to dream. He starts to hope. We start looking at examples of what does it look like when a person hopes and dreams, and how do you make the hope and dream rational and real in the scenario that he lives in, because it better work in the real world. But it's not something that I'm going to pay for him to do. That's not real. Or something that I'm going to make happen. That's not real. He has to discover what's inside of him, and God or someone has to make it happen, so it's not me. Do you understand that? Because then it's just me manipulating a situation, which is called power and fear again. Coercion with love. We're going to coerce you with our love for you and our money. That's not it. That's called religion. And so then, yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm just trying to wake you up there. And so anyway, so he starts to, and he starts saying things that come out of him. And then when he does, I go, do you know who that is? Who said that? Did you hear what you just said? No, he's not paying attention to what he says. I'm sure we all pay attention to everything we say. And I said, did you hear what you said? What you just said means you hope about something. Do you get that? Do you know that? He's like, really? It's like the scarecrow in The Wizard of Oz saying, I wish I had a brain. And they're all like, does he not know he's the smartest one among us? Does he not get that? And the Tin Man's crying because he doesn't feel for anybody. It's like, wow, how deceived are you? How deceived are you? You're asking for something you already have. It's not magic. You already have it. That's why I'm saying to these young guys, you already have it. I will help you do what you already have, but you have to tell me what it is, and you have to tell me your identity so I can help you be the identity that you know you are, not something I tell you to be. Right? That's our whole problem, is people telling other people what they're supposed to be. And you got to be like me. That's usually the standard. Isn't that frightening? Well, who's the example? I am. Because I have a vertical marriage. Okay, stop. Stop it. Anyway, gosh. So he says one day to me, he says, he's a Palestinian. That's important to the story. He's a Palestinian, and so his whole life has been conflict with Israel. This is the whole, it doesn't matter who's right or wrong. It's just the way it is. And so he says to me, we start talking about the idea of God. And he's like, to me, do you believe in God? And I'm like, yeah, it depends on what you mean, but yeah. We start talking about that. And he says, do you think God talks? And I'm like, I think I can hear him. I don't know if I call it talking, but I think I can hear God. I have ideas that are unusual. And that's how I ended up here with my unusual ideas. That's why I'm stationed here. And he said, well, how do you access that? And so we started talking about that. Well, how do you have new ideas? And what is inspiration? And all these beautiful words. And he's becoming creative. He's becoming a creator, which is what he already is. And he starts having these ideas, and he just says them to me. He's like, you know what I was thinking about the other day? And he says this idea, and I'm like, wow. What happens if a person tells you an idea, and you'll go, that's stupid. You know how you do that? Like, our youngest son said one time to us, I want to be a ballerina man. And I was like, that is beautiful. You know, because every time you open your mouth to a person, you can bless them or curse them. Guess what most of us are doing to people? We're just cursing them. That's a whole other amazing foreign policy strategy. It's called blessing. Anyway, that we tried in the West Bank. It was unbelievable what happened to that. It's like, Jamie, what's your strategy? That's why they don't call me anymore. Like, what's your strategy? Well, me and my team are going to go to the conflict zone and bless people. They're like, all right, how much is that going to cost us? It's free. Blessing is free. So anyway, he starts dreaming like that. And then one day he says to me, he said, because then he started talking about Jesus. You know, for the Muslim, Jesus is a great prophet. And he says, he says to me, do you believe in Jesus? And I said, yes. And he said, you know, we believe Jesus, Isa is Nabi Isa, Jesus the prophet. And I'm like, beautiful, good. And he goes, do you believe that? And I said, yes. Mm-hmm. And then he goes, do you think Jesus could help me get a driver's license? I'm like, gosh, I have never even thought of that. I don't think he's ever driven. And I'm like, I don't know. He goes, because as a Palestinian, I'm not allowed to get a driver's license in Israel. So I can't work. He's born in Israel, but he's a Palestinian, so he doesn't have the same status as an Israeli. So he can legally go get in line to get a license, but typically he doesn't. His line never moves. So it's not illegal, but his line never moves. And he told me, and he goes, but I'm hoping, I wonder, can Jesus help me get a driver's license? I'm like, shh. I'm thinking, where in that in the Bible? So nowhere to go in the Bible on this one. So sola scriptura. I hope there's another one talking besides the text, because I need another idea on getting a drive. Anyway, so he says, he said, 3 times in my life I've gotten up the courage to go stand in line at an Israeli police station. I can't explain to you the complication of this situation, and the fear in him. But he said, and we lose our jobs because we have to stand in line all day. And then we don't get called, so it's a risk. We lose our job and maybe get called, but none of us have ever been called. Do you know what it's called when you go down and stand in line and you've never been called? It's called faith. I said, dude, you have a lot of faith. He says, but we keep losing our jobs. So what we have to do is pay a person to go stand in line, and we have to wait on our phone at our job, and they're like, we're 3 away, and you have to leave your job and run down there, and then they don't call anybody. So he's been in that system, and he's like, do you think Jesus... Now, here's a question I kind of do understand. Do you think Jesus can help you at DMV? I'm like, wow, I know he can part a sea, but that one... We've all sat there. And I said, you know what? I would ask him. I would just ask him. So he decides he's going to try and go get a driver's license because he's dreaming again. He needs a job. He wants to get a job in Israel, because that's the only way he's ever going to, advance anywhere. So he decides he's going to go stand in line. And he says to me, "Why am I so afraid to try?" He goes, "Why am I so afraid?" And I said, "I think the fear is a lie." And he said, "Like shaitan," the Arabic word for Satan, like shaitan. I said, "Yeah, like that, the liar, the lie, yeah." And he said, "So if I'm afraid, it's based in a lie." Yes, right. So if I'm afraid to stand in line, I should probably just try and go and stand in line. Yes. But I don't guarantee anything. I'm just telling you I would go stand in line. So it takes so much effort. So he pays his friend to go get in line. He goes to work, and his friend calls him and goes, "The line is moving. Do you want to get down here and get in line?" And my friend says, "No." Is there anywhere in the Bible? It's like, here we go again. You ask for the impossible, here it comes, and you're going to say no? I wasn't with him, though. He's alone, and he goes, "No," and hangs up. And then he goes, "No, wait. Here's the process he goes through. Wait a second. Okay, I am afraid. What am I afraid of? That I'm going to go get in line and they're not going to call me. Why am I afraid of that? Where did I learn this fear? I've learned this fear my whole life, that I'm unimportant, I have no power, there's nothing's going to happen. Okay. And then he's, "Okay, God, what's true?" And then he just remembers stuff from his own tradition, that God is this amazing, powerful, that can do anything. So he calls his friend back. "I'm coming." Goes down there, he gets in line. He has his ID, and the line moves, and he gets called. Now he's like, he's never gotten this far. He has no idea what to do. And so he's shaking, and the Israeli, the enemy, comes up to him. "Do you have an ID?" And he knows as soon as they see his name, because you can't tell by looking at them necessarily, as soon as he sees his name, he's going to know he's a Muslim Palestinian. He's going to get out. And so he's like, so this is his first communication with Jesus in his life. Help. That was it. That was his whole communication. But now it's not like to some distant, it's like, I need somebody like right here. I don't care if you know how to drive or not. I need help right here because my enemy has my ID. And the Israeli, who's a policeman, even worse, looks at his ID and goes, he says the Palestinian town, "Are you from," speaking Hebrew, won't speak Arabic to him. So the Arab has to speak Hebrew or he won't communicate with them. And so this guy knows you have to learn Hebrew. So in Hebrew, "Are you from," which is kind of an insult. "We're not going to speak your tribal language. You have to speak my language. Or you can go back to where you came from." I know we don't think this way, but anyway, this is hard for us to grasp. And so he says in Hebrew, "Yes, I'm from this town in the West Bank." "Get in the car." And the Israeli policeman goes and gets in the car. "Get in, drive, you're driving." Well, he's never driven a car before. Because this is not supposed to happen in my fear-based, self-protective world. And it's like, wait a second, we went in there, and those guys are giants. We didn't know there were giants there. We're not going. Why? Because we love wandering around in the desert. Such an amazing life. Just walking around in a 9-to-5 circle until we die. And Joshua and Caleb are like, "Are you nuts? Like, what is wrong with you?" We hate that. We've hated it the whole time. We have the chance. We can go. Let's go. No. This is a better strategy. How long? Until we die. And the idea is that God says to Joshua and Caleb, "We'll just wait for this generation to die out." Now, if I was Joshua and Caleb, I would have worked to speed that up, wouldn't have you? They're like, I mean, they were soldiers. We can really speed this up for you. 20 died last night. We're moving closer to going into the city. We're not waiting for these people, but they didn't because they were godly. And you know what kind of marriages they had, those guys had. You know, I don't have to say it. You've already know. Joshua and Caleb had to. And so he goes to the car. He's going to the car, and his prayer life is rapidly increasing. Do you know how to drive a car? Do you know how to drive a car? Jesus, can you help me drive a car? So he gets in the car. Of course, he's watched a bunch of movies on driving, and he's played the game. It's got to be like that, He gets in the car, and the Israeli, his enemy, says to him, this is his generational enemy. Do you see what's happening here? So beautiful. His enemy says, who can thwart his entire future, the enemy, the giant, says, okay, drive down there, and all right, he pulls out, and I don't know if you've ever driven in Jerusalem. My God. Really, it's in a kind of way it's liberating because there's no rules. So how do they judge you? You pulled out in front of that guy? That's what you do. I mean, that's how you drive. Anyway, so he goes out into traffic. They're driving down the road in Jerusalem. And the Israeli's not really paying any attention to him. He's just like, go there, turn there. And the Muslim guy's like, oh, I'm doing it. It's happening. It's like he can't believe it. I'm driving through Jerusalem with an Israeli policeman who's not handcuffing me. It's unbelievable. It's a new world. And he's driving, and they drive down this street, and on the side of the street is a cat that's been hit by a car or something. They drive by, both of them observe the cat driving on. The Arab Muslim guy hears this idea, strong, go get the cat. Now he's in that situation where I don't want you to talk anymore. You know that one? Stop talking. You know that feeling? I only wanted you to talk to here, now I want you to be quiet. I got it. Go. We don't care about animals. They don't have souls. We don't care. And it's insistent. Get the cat. Go drive back and pick up the cat. And he starts to lose his concentration driving, and the Israeli's like, what's your problem? What's the matter? What's your problem? Concentrate. And he knows, I have to go get that cat. Now, he's got the idea. Now he's got to communicate it to the enemy. Did you see that cat back there? Yeah? So what? Go drive. I feel like we need to go get it. And the Israeli, what? And he's saying it's all in Hebrew. It's not even his mother tongue. I think we need to turn around and go back and help the cat. Why? And he's in his heart going, don't make me say that you said it. Don't make me say you said it. Please don't. Just let him think I'm a humanitarian, an animalarian. I don't know what it is in Hebrew, but that thing that loves animals. He doesn't even know how to say it in Hebrew. What is there a word for you love animals in Hebrew? I don't know. And so the guy's like, why? He goes, I feel like, and because he's speaking Hebrew, I feel like Elohim wants me to get the cat. So here's a Muslim Palestinian telling Israeli atheist that Elohim, the Hebrew God, is telling him to go pick up a cat. And the Israeli says, the Israeli had theological problems all over the place on this statement. One is, does God even exist? 2, does he talk? 3, does he speak Hebrew to an Arab? And he's not. Elohim told you to go. Yes. And they're at a traffic light, and the Israeli goes, all right, turn around. I mean, if it was Allah, we wouldn't stop. But Elohim, we kind of got to go back. All right? If it's your God, we ain't doing it. I mean, it's kind of my God that said it. I don't know why. I don't even believe in him. But, right? We know, like, I know you don't think this, but if someone has another God, that's stupid and dumb, and we don't do that unless our God says it, who only speaks English, by the way. We know that. So anyway, so they turn around, and they drive back to which was a complicated driving maneuver, and they get back to the cat, and they get out, and they're just both standing there. If you can imagine this scene. It's still alive. Yeah, I know you guys. You don't care about the humans in this story. It's like every time I tell, it's like ha ha ha. The cat hurt. Oh, my heart goes out. We don't care about the conflict in the Middle East. There's a cat injured. Anyway, so the Israeli says, I got a box in the trunk. And he goes and gets the box, and they kneel down together, and they pick the injured cat up and put it in the box. And they put it in the car, and the Israeli says, okay, this is still the driving test. So you drive, I'll tell you where to go, and don't worry about traffic signals, just drive. Now, here's a Palestinian driving an Israeli policeman in a car and doesn't have to obey any laws. Just drive. We have a cat. Go. Elohim said, get there. Get there. Forget the... Don't worry about what the Orthodox Jews say about the traffic signals. Just go like this. Let's go. And so they rush to this veterinarian clinic. They get out. They take the cat and they take it and the police are like, get out of the way. They take it in and then they take it back to the vet. And the vet's like, I think it's okay. And they're out in the waiting room. They can't sit down. They're like, wow, what do you think's going to happen? I don't know. And they're nervous. Is Elohim saying anything about what's going on? He's asking the Muslim, is Elohim saying anything that's going on in there? Like, what do you do? Are you praying or something? What do we do? The vet comes back out. It's okay. The cat's going to be fine. They hug each other. Still the driving test. Drive back to the police station. They get to the police station. And the Israeli says, that was amazing. You're a really good, that was an emergency and you drove amazing. And they was like, yeah, that was great. It was great. The Israeli goes, here, you have a license. I'm giving you a license. And they hug. What is happening? He went to get a license. Jesus brought reconciliation through forgiveness using a cat. Is there anywhere in the Bible you just read a story and you're just like, that just doesn't make any sense? Yeah, the whole Bible, I know. Yeah, it's the whole thing. Anyway, so the Arab guy, we know he's taken the test or trying to. And so we live in this apartment, and Don and I live in this apartment in Jerusalem, and he's like banging on the gate, banging on the gate, and I look out, and the Arab guy, he's a short guy, and all I can see his hand up over the gate with a driver's license. He's going like this. This is what he's yelling. Now he's in Arabic. Jesus can drive. That's what he said. He can drive. It's our biggest joke together, is that joke. And he loves cats. And that kind of. So the reason I wanted to tell that story tonight is while we were sitting in the session over here, this kid who can't dream sent me a text. And in his text, he said, on April 25th, I'm graduating from the university in Arizona. He's finishing a degree in public health. And he's a remarkable person. And he said, I want you and Donna to come and be with me. It's funny because Donna's Jewish. Donna's the first Jewish person he's ever met until the Israeli who trumped Donna in his relationship. And he said, I want you and Donna to come. And so we're going to go, and we're going to celebrate with him, one kid. And this is what I'll never forget this. He had come into the U.S. through this long journey together. He came into the U.S., very, very difficult to come in as a student and all that stuff. And his family has no money at all. And it's just unbelievable how God took care of him. And he's made it through on his own. We didn't really help him. But one night I was with him. We were in Houston together with a Palestinian delegation. And the Palestinian delegation was there, and they were all Muslim leaders. And we're sitting at this person's house, and they're going around, and this young Arab guy says, Jerusalem is dying, and Jesus has invited me in to be part of the healing of Jerusalem. He said it in front of the Muslim leaders. And to do that, I need a degree. He'll probably do the whole PhD in public health to go back and help them heal. That's what he's on his way to do. And nothing can stop him. Nothing can stop him. But here's what he knew. He said, God taught me to love my enemy. Do you know why? Because they're not your enemy. That's why. They're not your enemy. You know who your enemy is? Really? You. Your fear. Not even Satan doesn't have really any authority unless you give it. That's it. That's all. Let's don't do that. Let's don't do that. I'm just thinking for a second. Yeah. Ask me a question. Ask me a question. Somebody ask me a question. Oh my gosh. Okay, before I do requests, no, I will. I'll tell the monkey story. I love that story. It's hilarious. It's embarrassing. What happened to what? The lady. I don't know. We left, man. I don't know. We got out of there as fast as we can. That lady, God, that was a kind of a complicated story. I'll tell you. I'll stay and I'll tell you that story. I don't want to say that whole thing out here, but does anyone else have a question? I'm happy to tell a story. If you don't, it's okay. I'll ask myself a question. Yeah.
Do you speak Arabic?
A little. Yeah. Donna's better than me. Our kids are fluent. Our oldest son is married to a Jordanian. Our youngest son is married to a Palestinian. The ballerina man married a Palestinian. The ballerina man turned out to be a skateboarder for Red Bull. That's what he turned into, but he started out as a ballerina. So our main language is the Malay dialects. That's where we spent our first 10 years, is in that Islamic part of the world, and then we moved over to Baghdad and then down into. So my Arabic is a sloppy Malay style, but yeah. Okay? Anyone else? Okay, good. All right, so have I what? I ain't buying that book. The monkey story, I'll just tell quick. So the monkey story is when we first moved into Indonesia, and we were living in the city of 5 million, in the city we were in. And we lived in a pretty bad section of the city. It was a 100% Muslim city. And then we lived in a pretty bad section, and we worked for the Ministry of Education. We taught in an international school. And so we lived in this bad section, and kind of a slummy area. And this is when our kids were with us in this time. And so we had a lot of mosquitoes in our, because it was kind of a slum area had water down behind it. And so there was a lot of mosquitoes, and the little house we lived in didn't have screens. So we hadn't even studied the language yet, so a little bit of Indonesian. And so Donna was like, we got to get screens in this thing. And I'm like, I don't even know where to go to buy. No one has screens. So our landlord, who was the father of another girl that was just this phenomenal story of a young person that just ended up getting her MBA and this amazing young woman. But she was her mom was a house cleaner when we met her. She's a whole other story. So her dad was our landlord, and he didn't make any money in this. So I decide, Donna's like, we need to just get the landlord, because we're Americans, and the landlord needs to take care of this stuff. And I'm with Donna, like, I'll show him that we're not dumb. We're not going to be taken advantage of in a foreign country. So I go to sit with them, and I'm drinking coffee with them, and I'm trying to think of how do you say screens, because I haven't seen any screens. So I'm not sure how to say it. So I'm going to do, talk around it to explain the concept to them. And because it's a second language and I don't, you don't dream in it yet, as they say. So I have to think of the English and translate it in my mind and then say it, which is the worst way to do anything. So I say to them, it's funny, I think I started with a lie. We love living in the house. Those lies that you say every day. Love the house. Love the open concept going on there. Right out to the swamp, beautiful. I think that's going to, this was in 1990. I think in the future that's going to be big. Just go in and rip it the whole inside out and put a little counter where you can cook on. I think that would be beautiful later. We love the wood fire there, and so I'm just, saying all this to him, and I said, okay, here we go. So I'm going to say, okay, can you install, I wish I could remember exactly the words I used, I'm sure it was awful. Can you install things in our house, and I'm gonna try and say mosquito, which is nyamuk, I know now, but instead I say monyet, which is the word for monkey. So I say, I'm trying to explain screens. So, because he's like, and he's the sweetest, most deceitful. No, he was a nice guy, and so he's just looking at me like, apalagi, like, what are you saying? And I said, okay, the things that you put up over your windows, curtains, no, shh, no. The things that keep monkeys out. That's what I say. So we're in the middle of a city. He goes, now, my whole thing, I've already got in my mind that he's going to try and rip me off. So I'm already in opposition mode. I'm ready for the fight. The thing that keeps monkeys out. He's like, I've never seen a monkey down here. I go, oh man, he's gonna lie right to my face. He said, I've lived here my whole life. I've never seen a single monkey down here. I'm like, you liar. I said, I didn't call him a liar. I didn't know how to say that yet, but I was like, that is not true. He goes, you've seen a monkey since you've been here? I said, not one, my friend. Oh, not one. One, I wouldn't care. Hundreds. That's what I said. What is it? Seratus. 100. I'm like, don't manipulate me, my friend. Don't you dare. And he goes, he repeats it. You've seen, in the very short time you've been here, hundreds of monkeys. I'm like, I don't know what your problem, I don't know why this is hard for you. Sulit is the word for difficult. I don't understand why this is sulit. Lama sulit, so difficult for you. But we see monkeys every night. He goes, really? Yeah. They come in through the windows at night. He says, those windows are up kind of high. So, of course, I say, They fly in the window. Like, what's wrong with you? Why won't you just admit that you're too cheap to put in, and so, but see, he's like my ex-friend Dave in the vertical marriage. He's just gonna let me embarrass myself. Now he figures he doesn't know what he's saying. Like, he gets it, but he's gonna keep me saying it. So he says, all right, so you see hundreds of monkeys flying in your windows at night. Okay, I get it. What do they do when they get in? And I said, they bite us. Why? I don't know why this is so hard to understand. They bite us. My wife is covered in monkey bites. She's complaining to me. You try and live with her. If your wife was covered in monkey bites, wouldn't you be upset? He said, yeah, I would. I'd be really upset. She would be upset. We'd all be upset. Yeah. Eventually, he says, I don't think you know what you're saying. And I'm like, I don't think you know what you're saying. Like I'm in this ridiculous. He says, I think you mean the word nyamuk. And I'm like, do I? Oh, no. And then I realized monkey, and I was like, well, nice talking to you. Yep, we'll just... Donna's like, did you get him? Nope. Nope. He denied the whole thing. Nope, we're not getting him like that. So that was that. But his daughter ended up being the first woman of their people group ever to go to a foreign university in their history. And she went on a full scholarship and got an MBA and is back now in that same city as a teacher, woman leader of that community. It was his daughter. She went to Azusa. Yeah, thank you very much. That is a cheap advertisement, which I won't be reimbursed for, I'm sure, for Azusa Pacific. No, that's what they gave her a full scholarship, and then she got an MBA there. Let's see. There was one other thing I was going to tell you. I'm sorry? No, the screen. No. Yeah, we moved. That's what you do when you embarrass yourself. I don't know what you do. We move. We moved away. Those are the people that say, Jamie, what do you do when you feel like it's not working? We flee. We run away, and we go to another place. One time there, I was there's a million language mistakes. If you're going to learn a language, you're just going to make a fool of yourself because you're already in the country and there's nothing you can do about it. And so we lived on this little island, the very first place we lived. And it was Thanksgiving. I was teaching graduate level in a university. And I wanted to ask them, it was Thanksgiving was coming, so we're on this remote island, no phones, nothing. And our sons then were 5, 3, and 10 months old, and it's me and Donna, and we worked with a little team. And so we're like, let's do some kind of Thanksgiving thing, But I didn't know the word for turkey. And I didn't even know if they had turkeys. So I asked one of my students, have you ever tried to describe a turkey to a person that's never seen one in another language? Do you have a big bird? He's like, a parrot? No, wait. It can't fly. An ostrich. No, stop saying things until I'm done my description. A big bird that can't fly. And I go into this long, it has a red thing under its neck, it shakes like this. He's like, what? Anyway, and so finally I think I do an explanation. And then you do American examples, which they don't know. The Pilgrims had them. He's like, pilgrims like to Mecca? No, not those pilgrims. The real pilgrims, the other pilgrims. There's other, what other pilgrims? The Puritans, and then it's like, forget it. So anyway, he thinks, I think you mean, and he says a word. Okay, now I got to remember that word because it's not in a dictionary. Say it again. The word is actually kalkun, isn't it? Kalkun, yeah. And so he says, kalkun. Okay, got it. For 6 seconds, I got it, and then I walk away. Cancun. No, that's a place in Mexico. But he's gone. Anyway, so I decide just to go and try and see if that's a word people know in the market, which is a horrible way to try and find out if it's the right word. And so I would do variations on Cancun was what was in my mind, but Kukun. You know, I would just like say a word, like kukun. And so I go up to this marketplace guy and I go, selamat sore. We're talking to you, and I said, Ada, do you have Ada? Kukun. And he ran away. And I'm like, okay, they don't have that. Okay, I'll just go to this store. And it was like, hey, it's not kukun. It's not that. You know, and so I keep trying these words. And so I say this one word to this guy, and he goes, I'm like, okay, that's probably not the word. And I'm like, what's the matter? And he goes, we do not have white slaves here. And I'm like, okay, all right. I'll be over down in this market. Anyway, so I finally gave up, and we moved to another island. So then on Thanksgiving morning, the next morning at like 5 a.m., there's this motorcycle honking its horn at our gate. And I go, and it's two of my students, and they're holding two turkeys whose feet are tied together like, we found some. They're live turkeys here. And they hand them to me, and I'm like, great. And I'm like, what do they eat? And for an Indonesian, the answer to every question about food is rice. What do they eat? Rice. Turkeys eat rice? Yes. What kind of rice? White rice. Okay, never mind. So I take them in, and I'm like, Donna, I found a kukun, or whatever the heck these things are called, 2 of them. And then, of course, our kids fell in love with them, and we couldn't kill them. And they lived at our house, and they're dirty and loud. And that's that story. This is why our kids were in counseling for so long. Let's see. I'm going to stop here. I'm going to finish with something here. What do I want to finish with? Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. So back in the West Bank, because the West Bank was kind of at the close of this part of our life. 2016 was when we finished up. 1990 to 2016. So in 16, we were wrapping up our time there. And this is another guy, another Palestinian kind of militant dude. Started working with him and his guys, his group. And beautiful. And they started having these experiences. We would go out in the desert with them. Oh my gosh. Once I start thinking of a story, there's like 100 of them with it. So I'm working with this guy. 3 years before we got into the project we were in at this time, an American was working deep inside this group, and he got attacked one night, and they threatened to kill him, and so he kind of had to get out quick. And so we made contact with the American that had been there before, and he's quite a legend, this guy actually. And he said, when you go in there, there's one person that you need to meet. And I said, okay. And he told me his name, and I'm like, yeah, that's such a common name. And I said, how do I find him? He said, I don't know where he is, but that's the guy you got to find. I'm like, okay, great. So anyway, I started looking for this guy just by going into the West Bank and wandering around and just saying, God, help me, I want to find this guy. And I eventually find him. It's a funny story of how we met and all this stuff. We become close friends. Start working together, and he says to me, he goes, I run like a gang of bad guys, and he goes, I'm the leader, and we work on that, and he's quite moved by our relationship. Things happen to him, and he says to me, he says, if you take our guys, because they're street fighters, and take them out into the desert with the Bedouin. It's very sacred. The Bedouin are sacred people to us because we're Palestinians and they're Bedouin. And they're like the true desert Arab. If you take us out with the Bedouin, way out into the desert, if you take my guys out, they're arranged so we can go out there. He said, I will talk to them. I will talk about how I've met God myself, and we will go out in the desert, and in the night we will ask God to speak to us, and he will tell us the truth about the things you're saying. So can you arrange that? And I said, okay. So I said, yeah, I'll do that. So his best friend, this guy, his best friend, happened to be a Christian background tribe. But this guy, when they became friends early in their life, didn't know this guy was from a Christian tribe. He never even asked because they were in a refugee camp together. And so he just assumed because this guy, his best friend, was always celebrating Ramadan and everything with him, that he was a Muslim. For 10 years, they're best friends. And one time they're together, this is before I met him, one time they're together, and this guy, the Christian guy, background guy, doesn't mean anything about what he believes about God. It just happens from a tribe that's Christian. They're together at his house, and this guy is reaching for something, and his sleeve comes up, and there's a tattoo on his arm. And the Muslim guy's like, do you have a tattoo? Because, you don't have tattoos if you're a Muslim. He goes, it's red. He goes, do you have a tattoo? And the guy's, his best friend for years. He goes, yeah. What is it? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Well, Christians tattoo themselves to mark that they're Christian. And so, our daughter-in-law, who's Jordanian, has a cross tattooed on her hand. So when they're born, they're tattooed as a Christian to mark their tribe. It doesn't have anything to do with belief. It's just, this is our tribe, our name. I don't know if you know any Christians that don't believe anything and just call themselves that, but that's what happens sometimes. It's uncommon here, but in other countries. Anyway, so the Muslim guy's like, let me see. No, I want to see it. Come on, we've been friends for a long time. It doesn't matter to me what you have tattooed. And he rolls up his sleeve, and it's a crucifix, a big red cross. And he goes, are you a Christian? What's fascinating is they've already been friends for 10 years, but this can change it because he's on the wrong team. Not, again, a foreign concept to us. But if a person's not on your team, you hate them because they're not on your team. Hard to get, but even though you could be friends with them, we can't be friends because they're on the wrong team. They're a bad team. He rolls up his sleeve, and it's this cross. And the Muslim guy goes, are you a Christian? He goes, yeah. He goes, then why do you love me? He did. And then the Christian guy says, because you're my friend. And then the Christian guy says to the Muslim guy, why do you love me? And he said, because I didn't know you were. Isn't that? If I really told you who I was, you may not love me. Do you ever feel like that? Anyway, so they overcome that. So when I meet them, they love each other again. And it's a big joke between them. He's a secret Christian. That kind of thing. Anyway, but the Christian guy doesn't believe in God at all. It's just his tribe. The Muslim guy kind of does. Anyway, so the Muslim guy is much more open to us, and he influences the Arabs. The Christian guy doesn't. So we're focusing on him, but I loved both of these guys. I love them a lot to this day. So we start working with, so the other guy, Arab guy, says, hey, if you get us down to the Bedouin will take us out to the desert. Me and my Christian buddy, we'll go out there with them. We'll lead in what's transformed in us with all of our guys, and then we'll just go out in the desert at night and listen and come back in the morning and tell what happened. So I said, okay, let's do it. So I arranged it so we could get down to where the Bedouin were. So we get down there, and I'm asking the Arab guy, have you got this arranged? Have you got a Bedouin to meet us? Yeah. All right. I mean, I don't know what I think of when I hadn't worked with Bedouin till before then. And so in my mind, it's like Lawrence of Arabia. That's the picture in my mind, And so I'm thinking, there's going to be a guy down there that in a robe, with a camel. So we drive on this road, and the road just ends, and it's the desert. And our guy, the Arab guy goes, we're here. And I'm like, okay. And we all get out, and the driver, who's his cousin, yeah, see him. He drives away. So me and the secret Christian guy who's keeping his tattoo covered and the 10 Palestinian Muslim fighter guys are all standing there. And they're urban guys. They're not desert guys. They're urban. And so they're wearing just kind of like sweats. And they were told, we're going to hike with the Bedouin, which is mysterious to them. And they're like, so they have like water bottles, a couple of water bottles. And then here comes the Bedouin guy, and he's wearing blue Bermuda shorts. He's like 25, and a pink Izod shirt. and he has no water, and he's smoking a cigarette, and he has on sandals. It's a millennial Bedouin. Like, whoa. Like, are you our guide? He's like, yeah. Yeah. What are we going to do? We're going to walk out that way. How far? Not far. And I'm thinking, he doesn't have any water and he's smoking. How far can he go in those flip-flops? Like, he's obviously not afraid of dying out there, so it must be not far. Well, the Palestinian guys are, you can come up to me, I'll show you on my phone. I don't typically show these guys, but they're like gang guys. I mean, they're buff, they work out, they can fight like crazy because it's their whole life. And so but because they're Muslims, they don't wear tank tops and stuff because it's disrespectful to their parents. And so, but when they get out in the desert, they're like ripping off the shirts. And they're looking like the Bedouin guy, like, loser. Like, who's the flip-flop dude smoking? He's probably never lifted a weight. And they're like, we could kill this guy right now. And he's smoking, we're all going to smoke. And they all start smoking and drinking their water, And the Bedouin guy goes, are y'all ready? He didn't say y'all. Are you guys ready? Yes. He goes, just follow me. And he just turns around. And he just starts walking like this out into the desert. And we're all like, and the Palestinian guys go running past him. They're joking and knocking each other down. Bedouins just walk in. And we come to the first hill. He called it a hill. I called it a huge obstacle, is how I saw it. I'm like, oh my gosh. And so he starts going up the hill like this. He starts walking up the hill like this. And he gets like partway up the hill and he looks back at us and he lights a cigarette. He goes, come on, we're going up this hill. And the Palestinians all run as fast as they can up the hill. Yeah, you loser. Yeah. Now they've drank all their water. We're 30 minutes in. They've drank all their water. The Bedouin guy has no water. He smoked 18 cigarettes so far. He's not even sweating. They run past him up to the top of the hill. And it's a good run. And they're up there, yeah. And the Bedouin walks up like this, he's walking like this up the hill. And they're, come on, Bedouin. Bedouin is the plural for Badu. Badu is the name. Een is the plural, Bedouin. So it's really Badu. He's a Badu. And his people are Bedouin. And so they're yelling at him, come on. They're yelling back and forth in Arabic. And the Bedouin doesn't pay any attention to him. He just walks up like this, zigzagging, gets to the top. And they're like, what took you so long to get up there? What took you so long? And he says, no, I just take my time. And they're like, are we here? Are we almost here? And he goes, yeah, we're close. He goes, see that white thing right there? And we're all like, here's how far away it was. None of us could see it. Like, where? No, it's right there. He goes, it's on that far hill, the far hill. Like that second hill? No, the far one. The fourth one? No, the far one. It's 7 hills away. We've done one. We're all going to die. The Palestinians are like, ha ha, loser. They're like, oh my. He goes, we'll make it. About 7 hours we'll be there. And he goes, follow me. And so he walks down. And I'm not kidding. We all thought we were going to die. And we're like halfway along. And I'm not kidding. It was scary. And then we come over this one hill, and there's like 6 camels standing there. And the Palestinian guys, because they're city, they're like, camels, let's go. Because all they've seen is tourist camels. Let's go. These are wild camels. I don't know if you've ever seen a mad wild camel. Here come all these Palestinians. Yeah, loser. Yeah. He's like, camels are dangerous. And those camels started running. All the Palestinians running back up the hill. And the Bedouin guy just walks right past. All the camels go right past him. He just keeps walking this way. We get all the way out there. At nightfall, we get all the way out there. And the Bedouin camp up around us in the hills, and we camp down in this valley, and the Bedouins stand watch over the Palestinians for different reasons, but because they know the desert and they know who's coming and they can move and warn you of whatever's coming. military or whatever. And so they're up there, but you never really see them, but they're up there. And they're really cool. It's very cool. So we're down, and we had this fire going, and all the Palestinian guys are like, they're recovering, and then now they're cooking food. And the lead Muslim guy says, I want to tell you what it is to dream. And he tells about a dream in his own life. And then he goes around the group, I wanted you all to tell me how you dream. And so we do this all through the night. They go out into the desert. They come back in the next morning. All of them have been in jail. None of them have graduated from high school. All of them. They come back in the morning, and all they talk about is what God said to them in their true identity through the night. It's one of the most remarkable things I've ever seen. They didn't believe any of this when we started. But neither do we, that this can happen. So all of them, start this journey into life in a new way. The Christian guy, and this is what I'm going to end with him. So the Christian guy is the one guy that doesn't get it. Like he doesn't, what happened? Because he grew up in a, Eastern Orthodox kind of, it's just about our team. It's not about transformation. He doesn't even know what any of that means. It's just a religion. You're a part of it. It's your team. It doesn't really mean anything. It's not going to change your life. It's just who we are. That's all it is. But it doesn't have anything to do with here and dreaming and doing the impossible. But the Muslim guys around him are hearing a voice talking to them that they're not prisoners, that they're not stupid, that someone does care for them, that they don't have to fight, that they can think, that they can be artists. I mean, they would stand up and say, I heard last night that I'm an artist. They're speaking Arabic. And then all the other guys say, is it true? And the guy says, yes. It's like what's being called out of me is something that I've always known is there, but dare I ever think that it could be done? We're afraid. We fight. We're afraid. Fear is the cause of war. And so they're doing that, and the Christian guy doesn't really get it. We do all that, back into the West Bank, back into the city. And the Muslim guy and the Christian guy and I are sitting together, and we're talking about what happened. And the Muslim guy says to the Christian, hey, haven't you ever heard God speak to you? And the Christian guy goes, I don't, not like what you're saying. And he said, think of the enemies that these people are supposed to be, right? That you hear about on the news. I'm telling you, it's not true. And he says, the Muslim guy says to the Christian, we can hear Allah speak. And when they say Allah, they mean God. And then if you ask them, what does Allah look like? They say Jesus. Jesus is how we see Allah. Jesus, they say, is Surah Mustaqeen Allah, the straight path to God. Jesus is the way to God. That's what they were saying. Is that anywhere that you know of that? And so he's telling the Christian guy this. And so the Muslim says to the Christian, you must know the identity that God calls you, or you cannot help us or be on our team. Find out the name that God calls you. And the Christian guy's embarrassed. And I'm like, I say to the Arab, like to the Muslim, like, back down, easy. He goes, we have to have him on our team. This is my friend. I can't have him in a false identity. We have to be together in who we truly are. Did you know these kind of conversations go on? And so the Christian guy, he goes home, and this is all what he told me later, and I've heard him do this in front of a group, tell the story in front of the group. He goes home, and he prays, the Christian, and he says, so He's a Christian, so he speaks Arabic, but it's a Christianized Arabic. It's not a Quranic Arabic, so it's a bit different. But he says, God, do you speak? Do you speak? And he's just listening, which is new for him because most of us just tell God what we want and don't listen. And he listens, and he goes, I want to know what you call me. And he has this impression, this idea, this sense, and this is what the voice says to him. I will tell you your identity inside the church of the Holy Sepulchre. If any of you have been to Jerusalem, it's the church that's over the resurrection crucifixion site. And that's what he hears. Now, here's the problem with that. So he lets me know. He says, I think God said this to me. I will tell you your identity in the church of the Holy Sepulchre. And I said, wow, here's the problem. He's not allowed to go into Jerusalem because he's a Palestinian Christian. So he's forbidden to go into Israel in any way. And yet, God said to him, I will tell you your identity inside the city of your enemy. And you're not allowed. It's 2 years in jail if he's caught inside Israel. I'm going to ask the question, does God tell you stuff to do that just is impossible? Where you look at God and go, do you not understand what's going on down here? Because if you did, you would have not said that. Do you ever say that to God? Like, that cannot be done. And so he tells me that, and I'm like, yeesh. He goes, what do you think? And I'm like, yeah, I think that's kind of how he does stuff. Sorry. So you have an option. You can say yes or no. You don't have to make it happen. You just have to say, okay, say it. And then the Muslim guys, say it! They're a little more aggressive. Like, say it! We have to have you on our team. Say yes, say yes. How am I going to get there? We don't know. Say yes and you'll find out. He's not going to tell you if you say no. Say yes just to find out how. Or do this the rest of your life. So, he says, okay, yes. Get me in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre and I'll listen for my name. So, he gets on a bus that goes towards Jerusalem. It doesn't go into Israel, it just goes up to Ramallah, around like this. But he just gets on a bus. Here I go. It's like he's telling God, here I go, getting on the bus. The bus goes up to Ramallah. Here I am. He gets off the bus. At the corner, when he gets off the bus, unusually is an Israeli soldier who's not usually in Ramallah because it's the West Bank capital. And he's not in uniform. But when he gets off the bus, the Israeli soldier is standing there, and he knows the Israeli soldier because the Israeli soldier went to a Christian school that they were in together in the West Bank for some reason. And he gets off the bus, and there's the Israeli. And he says his name. He says to the Christian Arab, what are you doing here? He's like, what are you doing here? Like, do you come into Ramallah very often? He goes, I don't know why. I just felt like I wanted to come today. I don't know why. Why are you here? And it's just like the guy driving the car is like, am I going to tell him? And he's like, I'm going to tell. I feel like I was asking God. The Israeli is an agnostic. He says, I feel like God told me that he would tell me my identity. And the Israeli says, we have identities? Yes. These are enemies talking, right? A conflict that can never be resolved. And he says, and he goes, yeah, but the thing is, it's going to be inside the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Well, the Israeli knows what that means. He's like, how are you getting in there? And he's like, I don't know. And they're both standing there together. And the Israeli says, well, I can legally take you to the Damascus gate if you're with me. Do you want to ride with me? I'll take you to, but once you get to the Damascus gate, legally, that's as far as I can take you. Okay? He's like, all right. Gets in the car with the Israeli. The Israeli drives him up to the checkpoint. They talk with the soldiers, like taking this guy to the gate. Why? Doesn't really matter why. I just want to take him. He's never seen it. He's never been in Jerusalem. I just want him to see it. And then, I don't know, just want to show him the Damascus gate. And then so the guard's like, all right, the Israelis are buddies. All right, take him in. They go in, drive to, they search the car and all this stuff. They drive into the Damascus gate. They get to the Damascus gate. And it's like in Lord of the Rings or something. And the Israeli goes, I can take you no further, my friend. This is far the journey as I may go with you. You are on your... And he says, I can't go with you any further, but, I'll drop you here, but it's risky. But it's legal right now. So, do you want to go? Yes. So he steps out of the car, and the Israeli's like, good luck. And so the Christian guy, he's standing there. He's never been in Israel in his life. He's never seen Jerusalem, and he's a Christian, and he just wants to cry that he got this far. Just to stand at the old city as a Christian. His family's they live 10 miles from Jerusalem. He's never seen it because of the politics and all. And he wants to cry, but he's like, I got to get to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Now, he has no idea where it is. He just knows it's in there somewhere. And if you ever walked around the old city, it's hard to find. So he starts walking towards the Damascus Gate, which is the Arab section. That's why the Israeli dropped him there. He was walking towards it, and 4 Israeli soldiers come out of the gate, and they're stopping everyone and checking IDs. So he doesn't have an ID to be there, and so he's like, oh my gosh. And so they're coming towards him. He's the only one standing there. 4 of them, 4 soldiers coming. They're just doing their job, right? They're just doing their job. They're the same age as him. They're coming towards him, and he says, God, can you make me invisible? Is there anywhere in the Bible? Nope. All right, here we go. I need something outside. Can you just make me invisible so that they can't see me? God has done that in the scripture. And so he just stands there and he's just standing still. And the 4 soldiers come right at him and walk right past him. They don't even look at him. They just walk right past him. He's like, I guess you can. He goes in the Damascus Gate. He's wandering around. It takes him a long time to find the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. And so he gets down to where that is. If you know where that is, he goes down to the courtyard. And they're closing the door because he's too late. The priest, if you've ever, is locking the door. But he thinks, it's a priest and he's an Arab. I'm okay. He runs down to the Arab priest. Here's a guy from his own team. He goes up to him, I got to get in there. Speaking Arabic. I got to get in there. He can't speak Hebrew. That's why he didn't want to talk to the soldiers, because he can't speak Hebrew. His friend spoke English with him. He gets to the priest. Hey, we're brothers. I have a red tattoo. I got to get in there. It's closed. Go away. It's closed. No, you don't understand. I'm not allowed to be here. And God told me he would talk to me. The priest thought that was the stupidest thing he's ever heard. God talking to you? Shh. Is there such a thing as a priest that doesn't believe God? Anyway, and so he says, no, I got to get in there. I've come this far. I got to get in there. You're not going in. I don't care who you are. You're not going in. And they start yelling back and forth, and around the corner comes an Israeli policeman. He comes down in Hebrew. What's the problem? The Arabic priest knows that this guy can't speak Hebrew. And so the policeman says, what's the problem? And the Arab Christian guy, he hears the policeman in Arabic. He thinks that the policeman is speaking Arabic, and he's like, oh, whew. And so in Arabic, he says back to him, I just want to go in and pray at the cross. I just want to go in and pray at the cross. I want 1 minute just to go in and pray at the cross. I had a hard time getting here. And the policeman says to the priest, what's the problem? Why can't he go in and pray at the cross? And so the Palestinian thinks they're all speaking Arabic. The Israeli thinks they're all speaking Hebrew. And so does the priest thinks they're all speaking Hebrew. But the Palestinian guy doesn't know any of this. He just thinks they're all speaking Arabic, and he's so relieved that they can all understand each other. And anyway, so he says to the priest, why can't he go in? Well, baby, let him in. This is his enemy. These are enemies. This is his friend. This is his team. This is his enemy. His friend won't let him in. His enemy's trying to help them. Love your enemy. Why? Because he's not actually the enemy. Let him in. He can't go in unless he has an escort. He goes, I've never been in here before. The policeman says, I've never been in here. I'll go in with them. Get out of the way. I'll go in with them. So they go in together. And the Christian Arab's like, you sent an Israeli police escort to do this? That's impressive. That is impressive. And so the Israeli policeman says to him, what is the cross? Where is it? And the Palestinian, he said, I've never been here before. And they walk around together. They're the only ones in there. What's that? I don't know. What's that? It's the empty tomb. What is that? The Arab explains to the Israeli what the empty tomb is. And then if you know the church, they go up to where the cross is, where they thought the cross was. And they get there, and the Palestinian bursts into tears because of where he's standing. He never in his life ever thought he would be standing in this place. And who brought him there? His enemy. And they're both standing there together at the cross. And the Israeli says, what do you want to do? He goes, I need to go kneel down and pray and ask God what he calls me. And the Israeli says, do it, I'll watch for you. And so the Palestinian kneels down, the Israeli policeman stands behind him, and he weeps his eye, and he says, God, you did it. You did it. What do you call me? And he hears this voice that says, you are my farmer. And I'm not kidding. The Palestinian goes, really? And the policeman goes, did you hear anything? And the guy goes, yeah. And he goes, what? Like, you're crying, now you're not. What did you hear? He said, I heard farmer. And he goes, really? Like, we're all disappointed in this. Like, can it be something magnificent? I don't know, farmer? And so, and the Israeli says, ask again. That's what a good Jewish person would do. And so, this is important. Yeah, when you hear something from God, stay after it. Don't stop. Keep going. And so, what is that, farmer? What does that mean? And then he has this beautiful picture